Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Nice to see you here today. Before we begin, it behooves us to step in as we do from time to time and acknowledge a new tradition honoring old ways. And that is to be mindful of our beautiful spot here once and not so terribly long ago, the land of the Tongva people. A website of Canada allows you to look up Native people by their zip code, native-land.ca. If your memory is anything like mine, you are welcome to ask me about that after services today. Welcome to PUC. We are a welcoming place, struggling to be a more powerful place of justice. We have a few announcements, as we typically do. Laundry Love continues to accept donations, coins, cash on the tables out back. Also, for the past few years, PUC's annual weekend at Camp de Benneville Pines in Angeles Oaks has been canceled due to, what was that? Oh yeah, a pandemic. We miss lots of fun activities, being able to be together, s'mores, all that good stuff. So typically, Andy and Janet Kisner have come up with a solution to help us get past it, which is on August 21st between 2 and 8 p.m. Our wonderful parking lot will be reimagined as de Benneville Pines. Nature-filled PUC, there will be crafts, games, activities, nature hikes, bingo, and a scrumptious dinner, and of course, s'mores. This is for children and all those young at heart, or all those who can pretend a patio is the Angeles forest. You can contact Janet or Andy Kisner. Of course, it will be in the view, and you can check with me afterwards on how to contact them. If anyone would like a rundown of our weekly activities, please let me know. Otherwise, we have our pizza parties, our senior covenant group, Mistakes and Miracles on Saturday, kind of the regular agenda. And now, I'm going to light our chalice. Unconditional love is not so much about how we receive and endure each other, as it is about how we keep the deep vow to never, under any condition, stop bringing the flawed truth of who we are to each other. As we are on this journey of continuing to heal from the pandemics of systemic racism and the societal upheaval of the COVID pandemic, we look toward our faith communities for action. What can we do with our words, deeds, and wallets to ensure an anti-racist, classist, sexist future for all children? What can we do today that will challenge our modern caste system and create more equitable health, wealth, and justice for all communities in that struggle, that continued struggle to create a beloved community of mutuality, care, compassion, and creativity? Today, academic activist Zach Ritter comes to us with some wisdom about how we might challenge our modern caste system to create a more beloved community. Dr. Zach Ritter received his PhD from UCLA in higher ed, focusing on Asian and international student cross-racial attractions. He was the Dean of Diversity at Harvey Mudd University, and prior to that, the Assistant Dean of Diversity, and is a lecturer at Redlands examining challenging status quo supremacy in higher education. At present, Zack is the Interim Associate Dean of Students at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills. But before we hear from him, we will be hearing We Celebrate the Web of Life from Maestro Abraham.
Abraham is back. We celebrate the web of life, its magnitude. For we can see divinity in every living thing, a fragment of the perfect whole in cactus and in quail, as much in tiny barnacle as in the great blue whale.
Thank you. And now Dr. Ritter is going to lead us in our children's moment. And I believe we have some children. If you would come up and join us on the rug, he's got something to share with you.
All right, cool. Thanks for coming over to the rug. All right, hey, we got more people. Good. Awesome. Okay, so do you know what the golden rule is? Have you heard of that before? Okay, well, that's why we're here. Excellent. So the golden rule is treat others as you would want to be treated, right? Okay, cool. All right, so we're learning a lot on Sunday morning. Oh, I can't. I can understand, but I can't. Sorry. You can. Do you want to? Go ahead. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, cool. Hey, welcome. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Do you know what the platinum rule is? Okay, all right. So treat others as they would want to be treated. It's a little different, right? Because treat others as you would want to be treated versus treat others as they would want to be treated. But how do you know how other people want to be treated? Right. You have to ask them, you have to get to know them, maybe become their friend, right? And that takes time and effort, and it's hard, but it's worth it, because it's good. It's better for society to do that. You have 1 million friends, wow. I'm an old guy, and I don't have 1 million friends. That's very impressive, that's excellent. So I just wanted to tell you this really quick story it's a very famous kind of experiment in history. So do you know Dr. Martin Luther King? Have you heard of that name? Okay, cool. So after he died, there was a school teacher who was very upset about him dying, right? And the movement that he was leading to try to help people in society. And she was a school teacher, and her name was Jane Elliott. And so I guess I could also stand up, so people can see me. So Jane Elliott decided to teach a certain lesson in her classroom. I think this was like 3rd grade. What grade are you all in? Man, transitioning, that's a big word. Okay, yes, excellent. Okay, 1st grade. Okay, are you in like 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade? Okay. Okay, cool. Welcome. All right, awesome. So, so this was like 3rd grade, and what she did is she divided the classroom up into, are you familiar with this? Right? She divided the classroom up into blue-eyed folks and brown-eyed folks. Right? Because she was and she said that blue-eyed folks were better than brown-eyed folks. And then the whole week played out, and sure enough, the blue-eyed folks who were made to feel superior were beating up the brown-eyed folks, were calling them names, were doing all these terrible things. And she was doing this not only because Martin Luther King was killed, but also because she was trying to do a lesson on Native American history. And she was showing how we treat people in society. And then she did something interesting. The week passed, and then she said, actually, I was wrong. It's the brown-eyed folks that are better than the blue-eyed people. Okay, well, I know, and you take offense to this, right? Because, 1 week you were on top, and then the next week you're told you're on the bottom, and it hurts, right? So then, sure enough, the students with the brown eyes started being mean to the blue-eyed students, right? And it doesn't feel good, right? I know, it hurts. But she was trying to show that we have to be kind to each other, and that just because a teacher tells you this group is better than another, it doesn't mean it's true, right? And she was trying to show that society is unfair sometimes, but we have to treat everybody with love and kindness. So that was an interesting experiment that happened that was about the golden rule and also the platinum rule of, at the end of the day, you have to treat people as you would want to be treated, but also treat people as they would want to be treated. And then we'll have a better, more loving, beloved community, as Dr. King would call it. So I don't want you walking away from this being upset. You're great having blue eyes. You're amazing having ojos
morenos.
How do you say brown?
Moreno.
Morenos, ojos morenos. I have ojos morenos y
Más o menos.
verde. Yeah, más o menos. So, do you want to say anything about, I don't know, how you're feeling or anything before we close up? That is very magical. That is really cool. That's amazing. Standing up paper. Cool. And thank you so much for being here. This is from Honduras. That's amazing. Muchas gracias. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you.
To see the light within you.
Nothing about green-eyed folks. I'm feeling, some of you have been left out, so I wanted to mention it. All right. Now we're going to take a moment. I wanted to mention that if you have announcements or have stories or things in your heart that need some explanation, please meet outside on the patio after services and take the time to share those announcements and those longer stories. Right now we're going to take a moment for joys and sorrows so you can help share what's going on in your heart with your community. I ask everybody to take a deep breath Let gravity pull you down to your seats. Let your feet rest on the floor. Let the air come through your mask as it may. To just feel what it's like to be in this room, in this space. Let there be silence. Let there be reverence in our hearts. Let all the sounds of the earth flood over us and be heard, because we have known how to keep silence in ourselves in order to receive that which only silence can make possible. Let me drop down my burdens on the earth and feel the strength of earth well up through me, flow upward from the ground through bone and sinew into strength, as Antaeus did, knowing himself to be wholly only as he was one with the earth. And may my heart rest in silence, and let 1,000 songs I never heard before pour into my ears. Let me throw open the doors of my heart to all, as it answers, invitation find. My heart will be full, and they who come be filled as well. Let there be silence. Let there be reverence. Let there be welcome. And there will be wonder in our hearts. We're going to take a moment of silence. And now I bring you Dr. Zach Ritter.
Thank you for that beautiful playing. It's good to have you back, I hear. It's good. Oh, jeez. It's good to be back in the human form in front of people, isn't it? It's really nice. Thank you to PUC for bringing me here again. It was I spoke a little while ago, but it's a joy and honor to be back. And thank you, Reverend Steve Wilson, apparently the irreverent Rev, right? He's a special guy, and he's the one that brought me here. So it's a real honor to be here. And And welcome to the family from Honduras. I'm thinking about my father, who is he's a refugee as well, and so he's with me here today. Spirit. Okay, so it's been a difficult year and a half, right? Very, very, very difficult. So I know we did this before, but let's do it again. Let's take a deep breath in, okay? Here we go. One more time. Yeah, it's been a lot. Some of us have buried loved ones, right? Some of us have had soul-crushing depression, anxiety, all the things. And some of us still have long-haul symptoms from this terrible virus, right? But this is the resiliency of being in a social justice, faith-based community. We come together and we think about how we can build a better society, and we think about how we can support each other a little bit better. And we also tackle big issues, because the list of big issues in our society keeps growing and growing each day, right? The environment, racial justice, economic justice, gender justice, police brutality, all the things, right? And it can be overwhelming because sometimes we feel like we don't have control to change some of these things, but we want to because we have big hearts, right? As we buried our loved ones this year, we also started digging up 1,000 Native children's bodies from Canada. As we send our prayers and blessings into the sky for a world that cares more about Black and trans lives, we also spent $2.5 million per minute, right? $2.5 million per minute, sending a rocket into the sky to make our very own Star Trek dreams come true. As we buried 613,000 Americans, we also were exhuming bodies of those brutally killed in the Tulsa massacre 100 years ago. Of the 300 Black folks that were killed in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there were 0 white folks held accountable or arrested. The Faulkner quote comes to mind, right? The past is never dead. It's not even past. The past is never dead. It's not even past. And because the past is still omnipresent, Dr. King's words ring truer more today than ever. The time is always right to do what is right. The time is always right to do what is right. For example, the Transformation Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, gave a type of reparations to the remaining 3 survivors of the Tulsa massacre. They gave $200,000 to each of the people that were still surviving today. Viola Fletcher, who's 107 years old. Hughes Van Ellis, who's 100 years old. And Leslie Randall, who's 106 years old. Maybe this is something this congregation can think about doing reparations for Black folks in the South Bay, or even reparations to the Tongva Native folks, which you spoke of, right? Because it isn't enough just to do a land acknowledgement. What about giving a land tax, right? Or creating a land trust to rematriate the land for the 2,000 Tongva folks who are still living in Southern California. The time is always right to do what is right. I'm a big fan of this congregation. I feel like we could do some amazing things together, and I know it. I've seen it. I want to read about this congregation in the newspaper because I know what you're capable of. I've talked to you folks a lot. Last time I was here, it was a young woman in the front who was saying that what we need is to provide more opportunities for working class folks. Someone else said we needed to repair the harm done throughout history. And someone else said they wanted to attend neighborhood council meetings in PV to create affordable housing. It's all 3 of those things, right, and more, right? We can walk and chew gum. As Fred Hampton would say, where there's people, there is power. And I see a lot of power in this room. I say this because we are at a turning point in our nation's history. We are examining where we have been, and we are redefining who we are. This moment brings to mind Dr. King's last manuscript. It's entitled, "Where Do We Go From Here? Community or Chaos?" He wrote it in 1967. He rented a house in Jamaica with no telephone, isolated himself from the distractions of society, a little bit like us, right? He wrote his final manuscript, "Where do we go from here, community or chaos?" I know many of us have been asking the very same question in our isolated homes, watching the death tolls rise, not only from the pandemic of COVID, but also the pandemic of systemic racism and police brutality. Do we build that beloved community, or do we descend into chaos? Dr. King demanded an end to global suffering and stated that humankind, for the first time, had the technology and resources to end poverty, right? Abolish poverty. We talk about abolishing prisons. He was talking about abolishing poverty. He advocated for the abolition of poverty by the means of, quote, the guaranteed income. The guaranteed income is the same thing that Andrew Yang, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren are talking about with universal basic income 50 years later, and we're still not there. We've got a lot of work to do, right? 66,000 homeless folks in Los Angeles area. 31 billionaires in Los Angeles, of the almost 600 billionaires in America, closely followed by the 400-something billionaires in China. And one of those billionaires in Los Angeles is Jeff Bezos, right? Jeffrey Bezos, who again spent $2.5 million per minute as he developed an exit plan from this thing we call Earth. But you know these things. You read a lot. You're woke-ish, right? You talk to a lot of folks about these issues, and that's why I love you. It's a strong community. You challenge the status quo, and you know about white supremacy, and you're up to date on all the progressive lingo. You know that you had a Black Lives Matter sign, and I saw that it's back up, and I'm happy to see that, but it was vandalized several times by locals in Palos Verdes. But thank you for staying true to the struggle, right? And you kept it up. That shows a lot about who you are. You know that Dr. King said the most dangerous group in America is not the KKK, but actually the moderate white person, who would say to him, "I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action." Who paternalistically feels they can set the timetable for another person's freedom. Who lives in the myth of time and who constantly advises black folks to wait until a more convenient season. I know you all are on the right side of history, but with all we know, the question is, what are we going to do about it? You know, I know you've read How to Be an Anti-Racist, right? By Ibram X. Kendi. We talked about this a little bit last time. And you know that challenging systemic racism and individual racism includes changing culture, but also policies, right? Policies here. That was a great idea about getting a Spanish translator, right? That's very necessary. And even in your workplaces, right? And even in this very congregation. How do we build that community of a beloved community of collective love and solidarity that King spoke about? I know you've also read Caste, right, by Isabel Wilkerson. And you were horrified by the caste system in India, in Nazi Germany, and in Jim Crow South. And you were maybe surprised to know that Hitler borrowed his best ideas and worst ideas from us. He made the Nuremberg laws that killed my family in Europe from the laws that killed and subjugated folks here in the South, from the Jim Crow laws, all right? An Aryan person can't marry a Jewish person, and if you're already married, if you have sex with that person, it's against the law, and the marriage is annulled, and you're no longer a citizen, right, if you're Jewish. And you're no longer basically a citizen if you were black at the time. You were a second-class citizen. But we know that these modern racialized caste systems still exist today, right? We see it on the news and on our cell phones every minute of the day now. It's not just at night. So we got to think about what are we going to do about it, and we'll get there. I'll try to give you a list of some things that I thought of, but I want to hear what you think of. I know you've also watched that cool show on Netflix, High on the Hog. Have you seen this? It's like Anthony Bourdain, but it's a black cooking show that goes into black history. And it talks about George Washington, right, our founding father. Those teeth in his mouth were not wooden. You know what they were? That's right, they was enslaved black folks' teeth that were in his mouth. And with that mouth, he told his black chef, Hercules Caesar, that I don't trust you because I think you're going to run away. So I'm going to put you in hard labor in Mount Vernon in Virginia. And Martha Washington stole the recipes from Hercules Caesar, this black chef of our first president. Hercules Caesar eventually did escape and died a free man in New York City. But these are the things that we're not taught, right? And so we got to remind ourselves. If we want to know where we're going, we got to know where we've been. I know you also know about the process of ethnic Europeans becoming white folks in this country, right? Irish folks were called the white N-words, remember? 11 Italian Americans were lynched in what would be one of the biggest lynchings in America, second to the 38 Lakotas that were hanged by Lincoln in 1862. And also over 10 lynched here in Los Angeles of Chinese folks in 1871, downtown LA. So these Italian Americans were lynched in 1891 in New Orleans, and they were blamed for killing an Irish police officer. Now, what did the Italian community do in response to this? They started erecting statues of Columbus, of Christopher Columbus, to solidify their place in American history as Italian Americans, because Columbus was from what, Genoa, right? He's Italian, we're Italian. And now we're tearing down those statues because we're confronting this troubling history. But a group that was oppressed erected those statues to try to get some rights in this country, and this is the cycle that we have to break. It's a sick cycle. Why does one group have to be pitted against another, right? We also know it's false that Christopher Columbus wasn't the first person to come here, the first European, the first person not from this continent, right? There were native folks living here. There's a movie coming out. Did you see Black Panther? Okay, so the guy who did that, Ryan Coogler, is making a film about Mansa Musa. You know who that is? He was the richest person in the world. He was the emperor of the Mali Empire, Mansa Musa. As he traveled across northern Africa, supposedly the GDP of every country that he stepped across, they didn't have GDP at the time, but what they had back then, it raised because his, all the camel caravan, and he was throwing out gold and he was building universities. It changed everything. His brother, Abu Bakr II, supposedly came to Brazil almost 200 years before Columbus. And there's evidence of black Africans being in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico far before Columbus ever came. So we need to know these stories. We need to start reading this stuff, right? And then it'll change our actions. I'm going to give you one more. Give him one more and we'll move on. I feel like I'm in class. Sorry, I'm being too professorial. I apologize. I get passionate about this stuff. Benjamin Franklin invited the Iroquois nation in 1776 to the Continental Congress. Did you learn about this? There was a close relationship between the Iroquois and some of our founding, whatever you want to call them, people. We borrowed heavily from our Constitution, from the Iroquois Constitution. Remember the guy we just had who got impeached twice? The impeachment idea came from the Iroquois Constitution. Huh? The idea of a House of Representatives and a Senate, that came from the Iroquois Constitution. The idea of federalism and the delineation of powers of who can declare war also came from the Great Law of Peace, it was called. Yet, Thomas Jefferson, in the Declaration of Independence, refers to Native folks as, quote, merciless Indian savages. Different story. And we know how Native American folks are treated today. This has all got to change, right? All right. It's too heavy. It's too heavy right now, so let's move away a little bit from the heavy stuff. We haven't laughed in a year and a half, so let's tell a joke. Let's tell a Jewish joke, right? You invited a Jewish academic. Let's have a Jewish joke, okay? That's why you really invited me. All right. So there's an older Jewish man named Irv, and he's driving down the street, and he sees a billboard that says, convert to Christianity, get $5,000. Okay? It's interesting. He thinks about it, goes home to his wife, and he says, honey, I saw this billboard. What do you think I should do? She says, well, you've been a Jew your whole life. It's kind of late in the game to change. Like, maybe you should just stick with what you got. All right, I'm going to think about it. The whole week passes, comes back home to his wife, and she says, so, honey, what did you decide? He said, I don't want to talk about it. It's been a long week. No, I'm curious. Let me know. He looks at her in disgust and says, what's with you Jews and money? Okay, good. Okay, we laughed. Good. It feels good to laugh in a room of people. Look, it's a funny joke, but some of the best jokes make us think too, right? They have some interesting stuff in them. Dave Chappelle makes me think often. When I heard this joke, at first I laughed, and then I thought about my grandmother. She actually was quite generous with money, but she was also very careful with it because everything was taken from her in Poland, right? I remember her rationing gum. She would take a half and give a half to me, right? Because you never knew what was going to happen tomorrow. Nothing was promised. I remember her hiding $20 bills around the house in the planters, right? And when she passed away, we found all these $20 bills with wormholes in them. I remember calling her and thanking her for the money she gave me for Hanukkah. And she yelled at me and hung up the phone. And when she saw me again, she said, you know we don't talk about money on the phone. The Nazis are tapping our phone. All right? She had a lot of paranoia, had a lot of trauma that she never went to a therapist. Not healthy, not good. She was taken away from her parents at 13. She raised, the Nazis raised her. She went to Auschwitz. Both of her parents killed, her 4 sisters killed. So she goes back home after Auschwitz, and she told me a story about a Soviet general, apparently was Jewish, I don't know how she knew he was Jewish, in a white horse came and liberated Auschwitz. A crazy story. So after she's liberated by the Soviets, she goes back home to her native, what is called Jalashica, is in Poland. And she knocks on the door of her house. And the neighbors had taken over the house. And they said, it's our house now. Go away, dirty Jew. But she knew that her father had said that there's some jewels in there. If anything would happen, go get that. So she snuck in one night. She got the jewels. But then the neighbors and the locals, the Catholic Poles, started shooting Jews that were coming back from Auschwitz. Right? This is the stuff that Schindler's List and all the Hollywood stuff doesn't talk about. Right? Hollywood's not always truthful. They don't always show us the aftermath of these events. A black GI helped her well, she got out of there. She had to leave. She went to Czechoslovakia, and a black GI helped her from Czechoslovakia to get to the American-occupied zone where my father was born in Bavaria. That's where you get the B in BMW, Bavarian Motor Works. My family doesn't buy BMWs for that very reason. But my grandmother knew that a black GI had helped her, and she was the first person on her block to have a Jesse Jackson sign on her lawn, right? And to have an Obama sign on her lawn, because she saw what happened in Europe to folks who are on the bottom of this caste system, and she knew who was on the bottom of the caste system in this country, right? Something to keep in mind. I also want to tell you a little bit about my grandfather who made engines in Auschwitz for Mercedes-Benz. And he promised himself that if I got out of being this slave labor person, that I would buy one of these cars. And sure enough, he did. My family does not buy them. We don't support that. But that was his business, right? That was his promise to himself of overcoming this kind of racialized caste system in Europe. It also made me, as a young man, want to study this and understand how this never could happen in history again. But it does, right? Rwanda, we know, Srebrenica, it happens, genocide. Samantha Power writes about it eloquently in the Problem from Hell, comparative genocide. It made me also learn about Mercedes-Benz, made the gas for the gas chambers, right? Zyklon B, right? It also made me learn Volkswagen was made for Hitler's birthday in 1935. It's called the Nazi Volkswagen. All right? These companies still exist today. Capitalism is a powerful drug. And even Ford, right, the very American company. Henry Ford gave $350,000 to Hitler each year for his birthday. $350,000. And it's rumored that he would put a Protocols of the Elders of Zion in every new Model T so that the new owner could read about these fallacious things about, stereotypes about Jews and money. It's a sad history, but it doesn't mean we can't change something about it, right? And before I go into some of these ideas and wrap up here, I just want to say one note about reparations, because it's kind of in the news and we're talking about it a lot. My grandmother got $300 a month as reparations from the German government. Okay? Japanese American folks, if they were still alive in 1988, got $20,000 from the American government as reparations for the internment that we did here in America of Japanese Americans. So when folks say, black folks, don't deserve reparations because it was so long ago, it's always the right time to do the right thing. Right? If my grandmother could get reparations from the West German government in the 50s, 60s, and until her death, when we had to argue with the person giving out the money in Germany on the phone saying, can you just let us have the rest of August so we can pay for her funeral? And they fought with us. This history is still here, right? This history is still here. My father's trying to get citizenship to Austria, and they won't really give it to him. Because they say, it was a long time ago. We need to see more documentation, which we have. So this stuff is with us, and that's why we need to look at supporting H.R. 40, right? And the U.S. government apologized officially for slavery in 2008, but an apology, right? If I came and burned down your house and I said sorry but didn't give you any money, that's an empty apology. All right. And quick note, Romani and Gypsy folks never got reparations, right? Gay German men who were in the camps never got reparations. So there's a lot of healing to be done. All right, so let's get into some ideas about what we can do as a community. And I'll wrap up. I know you don't want to be lectured here on a Sunday morning. I apologize for that. So metaphorically, take out your wallet, right? And think about what's in it. Your credit cards and all these different companies that we're supporting here today. I'm telling you all about this history, but what about today? I just went to a protest against Chase Bank because they're supporting Adelanto Detention Center in Victorville, all right, through a company called GEO.
So if we have folks that are refugees here from Honduras, but in our wallet, we have a credit card that's supporting a detention center for folks from Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, we can't live in that contradiction, right? We gotta wake up and rethink what's in our wallet. Think about who you're banking with. You know how many Native American-owned banks there are in California? 0. You know how many black-owned banks are in Los Angeles? I know of 2. So maybe you can switch from Wells Fargo and all these, Citibank and all these Bank of America that in the last 5 years have been sued for exploiting black and brown folks, and invest in Broadway Federal or One United Bank. One United is the biggest black-owned bank in America. And Wells Fargo and Chase and Bank of America were complicit in slavery, right, in the buying and selling of other humans. So we have more power than we think, right? We read these history things and we say, man, that's terrible that Ford gave all that money to Hitler. But we can do stuff with our wallets today by joining a credit union or supporting a black or Latinx-owned bank. What happens if we all in this room attended a Palos Verdes neighborhood council meeting and advocated for creating affordable housing here in Palos Verdes? Right? The average income in Palos Verdes is what? Way too much. It's $138,000. All right, it's kind of a lot, right? Apparently, there's 4% poverty in Palos Verdes, which I didn't know. It's 1.9% black. It's 0.2% Native American, and it's 10% Latinx. But if we want to see these things change, we could do it right in our own backyard. Right? We can advocate for affordable housing right here. You've heard of NIMBYism, right? Well, have you heard of YIGBYism? There's a nonprofit called Yes in God's Backyard. And what this nonprofit does is it goes to different churches and it builds housing for homeless folks on this very property. Yes in God's backyard. So if we really want to walk the walk and talk the talk, we can convert some of the parking lot to house homeless folks, right? We can get creative about this stuff, just as Dr. King was doing. And you all are going to hire a multicultural liaison, which I think is fantastic. And also, maybe we could go out into a faith community in in San Pedro, right, or Wilmington, and connect with those folks with a different community, and maybe there can be an exchange of ideas. Might be interesting, right? What happens if you pooled funds together and went down to Wilmington and helped out the working class Latinx activists who are trying to fight against the ConocoPhillips oil plant that's literally killing folks these days? Right? It's in their backyard. I visited. There's oil derricks in people's backyards, and they wake up and they have headaches from the ConocoPhillips oil plant, which is just in Wilmington, not too far from here. The state of California has a scale from 1 to 100 about air pollution, and Wilmington is 96 out of 100 in terms of air pollution. Oi, yes. Oi. Rob Nixon calls this slow violence, right? It's a slow violence. It's not a gun, and we don't see it on our screens, but it's a slow violence that we can all help out with. Some of us are lawyers, retired lawyers. We can help out, okay? All right, I'm going to finish up here, but you've been hearing about Bruce's Beach? Yeah. Interesting stuff, right? Bruce's Beach was black-owned, and then in 1924, eminent domain, the government took it away from them, and now in Manhattan Beach, they're restoring Bruce's Beach to the black family that owned it. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff like that around here, right? It's always the right time to do what's right. We could do that right here. So when you look at the news and you get frustrated, don't get frustrated. Do something, right? Do something with the power that you have and the power that we have in this room. Remember Dr. King's Poor People campaign? It's happening right now. Even though he's passed, Reverend William Barber is walking with Beto O'Rourke from Texas to Washington, D.C. to fight for voter rights. You can help out with that. There's so much to do. It's exciting. It's actually quite exciting. And also, this church could be a site to house migrant families that are being, interned in Adelanto Detention Center in Victorville, right? That our chase cards, unfortunately, are going towards. In closing, I want to read you one of my favorite quotes from an author and public speaker, Arundhati Roy. Do you know this speaker? Arundhati Roy? Yeah, excellent. Whatever you feel comfortable with, you can close your eyes, you can think deeply about this, but I want you to envision what a healthier, more equitable, more loving Palos Verdes could look like. And not to say you're not already doing a lot, but there's always more to be done. That's the frustrating and beautiful thing about social justice and being in a faith community, right? There's always more that you could do, okay? All right, here we go. Our strategy should not only be to confront empire, but to lay siege to it, to deprive it of oxygen, to shame it, to mock it, with our art, our music, our literature, our stubbornness, our joy, our brilliance, our sheer relentlessness, and our ability to tell our own stories. Stories that are different from the ones we're being brainwashed to believe. The corporate revolution will collapse if we refuse to buy what they are selling. Their ideas, their vision of history, their wars, their weapons, their notion of inevitability. Remember this, we be many and they be few. They need us more than they need us more than we need them, right? Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That's so inspiring. Who wants to start building a house in the parking lot with me right after services today? And to raise money to do that, it is time for our offertory. Please give generously. And you know what? Today, there's just no joke. Our offertory music, please.
We're going to start over. Abraham, everyone. I'm going to hold it this time. Here we go. There were bells on a hill, but I never heard them ringing. No, I never heard them at all, till there was you. There were birds in the sky, but I never saw them winging. No, I never saw them at all, till there was you. And there was music, and there were wonderful roses. They tell me in sweet, fragrant meadows of dawn and dew, there was love all around, but I never heard it singing. No, I
Is it me, or is this just not a beautiful morning? My goodness. Thank you. Gosh. Holding my breath during that last note. Will you join me in the affirmation of gratitude? This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences, beneath all our diversity. Is that what's happening? Oh, yep. Good to know you guys are listening. Just checking. Please join me in the real affirmation of gratitude. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for all those who share their gifts, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us also be grateful for our needs, so that we may experience the generosity of others.
Let me interrupt just a minute. We didn't go around collecting, but there are baskets at either exit. So you tightwads, get out your money and drop them in the basket. And you generous people do it too.
And then there's that. And now we are going to hear all creatures of the earth and sky.
All creatures of the earth and sky, come, kindred, lift your voices high. Alleluia, alleluia, bright burning sun with golden beam, soft shining moon with silver gleam. Alleluia, 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 alleluia.
And now this church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences, beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause in silent witness to that unity.
May the blessings of love be upon you. May love's peace abide with you. May love's presence illuminate your hearts, now and forevermore. So be it. Amen. Shalom. Salam. Namaste. And blessed be to you and all your loved ones.
And now our service truly begins.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Yeah, let it be, let it be, let it be, yeah, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be. For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Yeah, let it be. Let it be. Let it be. And let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Yes, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. And when the night is cloudy, there is still a light that shines on me. Shine until tomorrow, let it be. I wake up to the sound of music. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be, let it be, let it be, yeah, let it be, yes, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be, let it be, let it be, yeah, let it be, yeah, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. Thank you. Go in peace.